Hello. Today we're working on another one of Johnny's essential oils. Well, maybe it's a little bit of a stretch to call this an oil. We're going to work on the lubrication, the greasing of the tractor. Now before I start this, I actually want to look through the book and make sure I realize where all the grease fittings, where all the grease zerks are on the tractor so that I can make sure we get everything greased. So I'm actually looking at page 9-1 on my owner's manual. Maybe different on yours. Yours may be newer, maybe older. But it says service lubrication. So looking at the book, I see that there are two grease fittings for the steering cylinder that need to be greased. Those are easy and obvious. They're on the outside. And in the next section, I see that there are 4 more grease fittings, one on each end of the four-wheel drive line going from the rear to the front. And the other one is the main drive line going from the engine to the rear transmission. So there's essentially 2 main shafts going the full length of the tractor. We need to grease the universal joints in each one. Now one of those, as we'll see, the four-wheel drive front U-joint has a piece of rubber over it to protect it, a nice rubber hose. We'll have to pull that back a little bit. Other than that, that's really all there is to it. Oh, there's a few more that aren't listed in this book, with my machine at least, because I have the mid PTO and the auto connect PTO connection there. All of those universal joints need to be greased in there. I should probably talk a little bit about the tool we're going to use, the main tool we're going to use, and that's a simple grease gun. Now you can get a simple grease gun like this anywhere, Tractor Supply or Rural King, any place like that online. I'm actually not very happy with this particular grease gun. Don't point at the tip yet, but I'm not happy with this grease gun. It leaks out the bottom. It's got the long-handled version. I'd like to have the pistol grip version. You might ask, why don't you go to the fancier version, the battery-powered one? Well, for my purposes, I don't use a grease gun that often. Basically, all I grease is Johnny. So yeah, Johnny needs to be greased frequently, and I use probably 2 or 3 tubes of grease a year. But it's not nearly as much as say, a farmer who greases, every morning before they go to work, and oftentimes runs through more than a tube of grease just every day. Besides that, I don't want the battery, just the hassle of a battery going dead and having to keep it charged and it wearing out and things like that. So what I want is one of the pistol grip one-hand grease guns. Now, while I'm not really satisfied with my grease gun, I am very satisfied with my grease tip. This is called the Lock and Lube. We actually demonstrated it in the disking video with the 3320. Let me show you what I don't like about my grease gun. While I've been talking to you, that's how much essentially liquid grease it's dripped out on the floor. And it drips that everywhere, and it's so irritating to me. It drips it when it's stored, it drips it while I'm using it. Can't stand this thing. Okay, how about the type of grease? Honestly, I don't really care. If you're putting grease into those universal joints, into any of the loader joints, any place where there's a grease fitting, if you're putting grease in that frequently, it's going to be fine. So I just buy kind of a multi-purpose grease. I'm not really worried about the brand. I'm not really worried about the details of it. So maybe I should be. I'll probably get a lot of comments in the comments section of, oh, you've got to use this particular grease. But in my experience on the farm, the problem has never been what type of grease you've been using. It's that you didn't grease it. Okay, we'll start with probably the easiest one to get to. This is the left front tire. And you can see this is one end of the power steering cylinder. Again, I just put it on there. I'm just going to give it one pump. Okay, before I do the other end of the steering, we'll work on pulling back this rubber hose type thing here that protects the front U-joint here. Why would I do that before I grease this? Well, basically the idea would be just trying to avoid to get any more grease on me than I need to, and if I've already got grease sticking out and coming out around here, then odds are I'll get it all over me when I try to take this off anyway. So I'm using a 5/16 socket, loosening this up. Show you just a little bit different angle how I'm doing it. Okay, I should have that plenty loose now. Okay, here we go. We're trying to pull it back. There it is. Now the grease fitting should be in here. Ah, look, it's pointing right downward. So in general, you want to grease things till you see grease squirting out around the, in this case, the universal joint itself. See if I can get the light where it shines in there. There we go. Now again, I only need one hand because I've got the lock and lube. And when I grease this, you could hear it, and you could also see it come out. Given that I'm not in here very often, I'm going to waste one more squirt on it. I really didn't need to. That's just wasted grease and just going to get dirty, to be honest. But hey, it makes me feel better. Okay, we'll slide the hose back up over it. That hose clamp can't take too much tightening, so we just need it tight enough to hold this on there. It's no big deal. Okay, now that we've got that done, let's put our grease gun right here. And one pump should do this. But I didn't see any squirt out, so maybe not. We'll do a second pump. Now I'm seeing grease come out. Okay, so that's the front end of the four-wheel drive shaft. You can see on my shaft, I got something wrapped around my shaft. I think that was at Patrick's house. I'm not sure if it was a weed or a piece of wire or whatever, but it got wrapped around there and shined that up a little bit. No real harm done. Okay, now we're back at the back end of this. Is the same shaft we were just looking at. Look, that's staying loose, isn't it? I don't think there's any problem there, though. I don't believe it's loose in the universal joint. It seems like it's more loose on the shaft. It's probably okay. Yeah, it's giving on the connection to the actual shaft. Okay, so this again is the four-wheel drive shaft, and as luck would have it, the fitting is pointed right down toward us. One squirt. One more for good measure. Okay. So that's got the four-wheel drive shaft on both ends. Now we'll move to the main drive shaft. And it's right up there. The grease fitting pointed right down at us, just like we would like it. Hopefully we can get the gun and the light all up in there at the same time. Okay. Don't know if you can see or not. Okay. There it comes. Okay. That is the back end of the main drive shaft. Well, we're down here. Let's take a look at these mid-PTO fittings. Ah, look at that. It really is our lucky day. We can connect right onto that. And hit that with a couple squirts too. We've got one here, which is this shaft, which adjusts in length. Might take us a couple squirts for that, because it's got grease all the way through there. I put in 3 squirts, that's probably enough. Now there's one more of those, and that's up here on the front. That one I can't get to unless I lower the auto connect. Okay, here goes the auto connect down. Perfect. Should be able to get the grease gun right up there through there. I believe I've got it on there. That sounds good. Okay. You might notice now with the auto connect down, you can actually see the grease out of that shaft being longer. Okay, we have one more fitting, and that's the front end of this main drive shaft. That hole there points me right up at the universal joint. But it's not turned in a way that we can get to it at all. What I found I can do is actually turn the main crankshaft here. Can you see the grease fitting up there? The light's kind of on it. And there it is. Right there. Hope I didn't turn it too far, because I can only turn the crankshaft one way.
Okay, I'm freezing the picture here so that I can discuss a couple of items here. First, you can see that the grease fitting there is actually an angle fitting. So it's not straight up and down, it's got a little bit of an angle. And since that angle is there, the hole actually is a little bit in the wrong place. That makes it very difficult to get a grease coupler to connect to that fitting. It can be done, and I've done it that way every time in the past, and that was my initial plan with this video, as you see here. I'm putting the coupler up in there, I get it connected, and then I began to have some problems. First, I couldn't get a good connection with the fitting, and the grease was wanting to leak around the outside of the fitting, so I was struggling with that. And then about that time, my grease gun ran out of grease. So all that I was saying earlier about it being my lucky day, I think this is when it began to go awry. However, not to be detoured, I decided it was a good time to do that video on how to replace a tube in a grease gun. So here I am getting started. So I pull back the lever and the whole grease gun starts squirting grease out at me. I pull it back again and it squirts more.
And as you heard earlier in the video, I wasn't very happy with the grease gun anyway, so I just got disgusted and got myself a different grease gun. This is just a cheap one, we'll see how it works. But I did put my lock and lube on it, because I love that. And so now we're ready to get back started on the project again.
With all this time to think about it, I decided it would be good for us to take a different approach to get to this particular grease fitting. Yeah, we could continue to go up from underneath and we could get it greased, but I thought maybe for some folks it might be good to see a different approach. So we're actually going to start at the front of the tractor, as you can see here, and we're going to take off both side panels. Taking the side panel off is actually easy. You take the bolt off up at the front and then you just slide it backwards and pull it right out.
Take out the one bolt. Again, just slide it backwards. Now, you'll note that in addition to this right here, when we go back together, it has to slide inside something there and inside something in the back. Yeah, there's some little sides there and there. Both of those have to be inserted appropriately. Okay, we're just going to take one more piece off, and that's this little black panel here. It goes all the way around. There's 4 screws, Phillips screws, and those front 2 over there you couldn't get to without taking the hood panels off.
The panel's a little tricky to get out from under that rubber mat.
Okay, here it comes.
This may seem like a lot of extra work just to get to one grease fitting. However, you can see here that you get really good access to that U-joint. It makes it a lot easier to grease than it is from the bottom side. At this point I was ready to grease. Got great access, got my new pistol grip grease gun, got the new hose on it with the lock and lube all mounted on it. I thought all of my bad luck was behind me. Uh-oh, it's squirting grease out around the outside. At first I thought maybe I didn't have my lock and lube on tight enough. But then I realized it was around the hose connector itself on the new hose, so I had to find plan B.
Okay, lots of adventure for this one grease fitting. But the hose that came with that new grease gun leaked. So let's try the hose that came with the old grease gun.
I should mention that I had to rotate the flywheel to get the grease fitting pointed upward, just like I showed you earlier when I was trying to get it pointed downward so we could get it through that hole.
Okay, here goes. Yet another try. That sounds good, and I'm seeing grease come out the joint. That's what we needed. So there was really no problem getting to the fitting, but there was a lot of problem with my equipment.
After wasting all that time on this last fitting, I decided I was really going to have to work faster to put everything back together. I guess if I worked at this pace all the time, I might actually get something done. Of course, I wouldn't want to let Christy catch me working this fast. She might think I have to work this fast all the time.
Lubrication complete. A little bit of a challenge on that last fitting, which I think I've shown you an easy way to do that. The other fittings, yeah, you have to lay on your back up under the tractor, but you can reach every one of them, and I've shown you that in great detail. So thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video informative. Press the like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Leave us a comment. We always like to hear comments. And stay tuned next time for Tractor Time with Tim.